So, hi. So if we haven't met before, I'm John Muir Laws, and I really like cheetahs. We are joined today by two amazing conservationists, and I want to introduce to you my friend Jess Sorrentino. I'm going to add you in. Bing! Hey, how about that? But wait, there's more. There's also Marcia Sivek from also the Cheetah Conservation Fund and BeProvided Conservation Radio, and we're going to add you in. Boom, boom, boom. There we are. So we are your team today, and we're delighted to be with you for International Cheetah Day. And we're going to learn a lot about cheetahs, their conservation, their status, how to journal and draw them, and just drop a whole bunch of love on cheetahs in our journals today. And we're really, really happy you're here. So with that quick introduction, I'm going to bounce it over to Jess and Marcia to introduce themselves and the work they're doing with cheetahs. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Jess, do you want to start with a little background about yourself, or?
Sure. So I'm a development associate at the Cheetah Conservation Fund. I am in California, and my background is in zookeeping. So I've been working with cheetahs and many other carnivores for about 15 years. And now, since having a baby, I don't anymore. So I am with Cheetah Conservation Fund and absolutely love it. Cheetahs are my favorite. They have been my favorite since I was 6 years old. And here we are. Take it away, Marcia.
Thank you. So I'm Marcia Sivek. So I've been volunteering with Cheetah Conservation Fund since about 2017. And I was a working guest in Namibia for a few weeks, which was wonderful. Recommend that to anybody. And so now I am officially with Cheetah Conservation Fund as a development associate, part-time as well. So I also host a conservation podcast called BeProvided Conservation Radio, and many of you may have heard me interview Dr. Lori Marker from CCF, as well as some other folks from CCF, and John Muir Laws as well. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a good journey. But I do have a little presentation, if that's okay, to show everyone, to talk a little bit about the Cheetah Conservation Fund. So I'm going to try to bring that up. And we're going to hold questions for after, if that is okay.
But I recommend that as questions come up to you, please drop them into the chat, and we'll try to keep track of all of those behind the scenes so that we get to people's questions, and we also have sort of a free-form opportunity for people to ask us questions at the end.
Perfect.
Take it away.
Great. So here is Cheetah Conservation Fund logo. And the Cheetah Conservation Fund was founded by Dr. Lori Marker. She's the CEO of CCF, and this was established in 1990. So this is Dr. Lori Marker at the facility in Namibia. So Dr. Marker was working at Oregon's Wildlife Safari. It was a new park then, and this was in the 1970s. She was helping to set up, she was sent to Namibia on a research project to see if a cheetah cub, who was called Kayam, which she hand raised in Oregon, could be taught to hunt in the wild. And luckily they were successful, but while she was there, she found that farmers were killing cheetahs by the thousands in response to them being a perceived threat to the farmers' livestock. And she was certain that somebody was handling this on a conservation end. But after getting back to the United States and doing years of research and searching, she found that there was really not that much known about cheetahs, and nobody was really organized to help save them in the wild. So she did an amazing thing. She sold all her worldly possessions and moved to Namibia and founded the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And here's you can see the overview of the facility now as it is now. And when Dr. Marker first arrived, she just purchased a Land Cruiser and traveled around Namibia and spoke to farmers about their issues and what could be done to help the people and the cheetah. And in 1990, a small plot of land was given to her to found CCF. And it has grown immensely, and it started with a few trailers, but now it is world-renowned conservation facility and employs over 60 people. And it is 158,000 acres of private wildlife reserve and cheetah sanctuary with a vet clinic and genetics lab. So pretty amazing. And these are some of the programs, as you saw on the last slide. I think it listed out some of the programs that are going on at the facility at CCF. And the CCF programs are plentiful. A cheetah sanctuary has been established to care for animals that need rehabilitation back to the wild or that cannot be released due to health concerns. CCF currently has about 24 cheetahs in their sanctuary, and it has a state-of-the-art healthcare center and that does workups on every single cheetah that is caught and released or is a permanent resident to the facility. Studies are being done at the genetics lab that include hormone studies, reproductive studies, including keeping a very large animal sample bank. Health studies, and much, much more. So a full-time ecology department puts out camera traps and does intensive research studies to see what's going on out in the wild. A dog team has trained scat dogs to find carnivore scat, which is poop in a layman's term, to survey how many and of what type of animals are in the area. They can use the scat to draw information from individual animals at the genetics lab, which is kind of cool. The livestock guardian dog program is one of the most successful projects that CCF does. Cheetahs by nature are kind of scaredy cats, which you wouldn't expect, but they prefer flight over fight in a stressful situation. So CCF learned to breed these Anatolian shepherds or Kangal dogs. It's a Turkish guardian dog breed, and the dogs live with their livestock as full-time protectors. And what's good about these dogs is that they have a very loud bark, and it will scare any predators away. The bark is deep, and it's been very successful. So cheetahs and even larger cats like leopards and such can be scared away from these dogs. And so these dogs are placed with farmers all across the country, and they're given care instructions from CCF staff who are always available if there's any issue with the animal. And CCF has witnessed an 80 to 100% livestock loss reduction since the implementation, I can't say that, of this program. So it's been very successful. CCF also created a model farm that teaches farmers how to care for their livestock and how to use them to maximize their livelihoods. Like, they have a wonderful creamery, the Dancing Goat Creamery. They create artisan cheeses, fudge, milk, ice cream, all delicious from the goats found on the model farm. And an education department does farmer training courses, goes out to schools for outreach education, and hosts schools and groups at the center. A lot of education endeavors there for children and the communities. There's the Bush Block program, which is another large portion of CCF's industry. There's a thick thorn bush, which has taken over much of the cheetah habitat due to lack of and grazing of animals in the area. And this thorn bush causes problems for cheetahs. At one, it decreases the space for hunting, but also if cheetahs run through that, it can cause injury to their eyes, eyes and such. So so what CCF found out, if they cut this bush down, they can compact it into these long burning fire logs that they call bush block. And this is sold all over Namibia and can be used for firewood and cooking. CCF's also has craft projects. That's another big success for the local communities. Local women make crafts and sell at the center and across the globe when Dr. Marker's on tour. And the women get a steady income from the purchase of the jewelry, and also brings awareness to the cheetah and helps spread the word. So now, at the moment, one of the largest threats to cheetahs is the illegal wildlife pet trade. Over the last 5 years, 350 cubs have been smuggled from the Horn of Africa to the Middle East, where they're sold as pets to the rich and famous. The animals are taken from Ethiopia, Kenya, Djibouti, Somalia, and smuggled through Somaliland across the Gulf of Aden to the Middle East. I guess that's the shortest route, between the two continents or between the continents. As Somaliland is not a country recognized by the United Nations, and therefore the resources to stop the trade are low, so CCF did step in to help with that. So yeah, cheetahs shouldn't be riding speedboats. So CCF has been working with the Somaliland government for years to assist confiscations. I have trouble with that word. But just in the last 7 years, a facility was established to officially take care of cubs full time. And with the work that we have done in Somaliland, assisting the government, confiscations have continued to flex up and down, but are starting to trend downwards. So that's kind of what this slide is showing. So it looks like during the pandemic, there were a number of confiscations, maybe lack of people out there looking during the pandemic. And so the new facilities are in Somaliland, are in Gedebli, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but it started out, it was working out of one safe house or villa to begin with in 2018, and over the next few years, it grew to 3 villas. There were enclosures built in the large walled areas, and the animals were sufficiently cared for. However, the funding finally came through to allow CCF to build a large permanent center in Somaliland. And it is in Gedebli, and it's about an hour outside of the city of Hargeisa. And the facility has expansive enclosures now for the 94 cheetahs that they house. They also have 1 leopard and 1 caracal that are currently being cared for. CCF employs about 25 staff internationally and local at the Somaliland facility. The hope is to create the area as Somaliland's first national park to increase tourism and environmental pride in the country, and build an education center to teach locals about why keeping wildlife where it is benefits the country. And education is the most important in order to help people in Somaliland. And so there's a lot of things being done out there. Distribution, there's a distribution of surveys being conducted. Educational pamphlets have been handed out, and camera trap studies have been completed. So CCF is slowly learning about the animals in the area and how best to protect them, and to help local communities as well. And recently, after 10 years of planning, CCF assisted with the relocation of 8 cheetahs that were gifted by the Namibian government to India. And cheetahs have been extinct for 70 years. And this was a huge milestone for the species and reintroduction possibilities worldwide. The animals were complemented by another 12 cheetahs from South Africa months later. And although there's been some ups and downs with this on the way, with the reintroduction, it's pretty much positive though. And it has included one live birth of 4 cubs from the CCF's female Saya. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So that's been successful as well. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. So Jess and I are happy to answer any questions. And before we do that, I was going to show you the slide here. This is how you can help save the cheetahs. You can scan this QR code. It should work. I believe we tried it. And that's available if you want to. That goes to our donation page. And we also have links here if you want to become a volunteer in the US, or if you want to find an organization in the country that you are in, you can go use one of these links on this page. And we're happy to assist you with any of that. So thank you. Are there any questions out there?
Shibashi has a question in the chat. Does CCF own a 747? I'll go ahead and answer that if you don't mind, Marcia. No, we do not. I don't know if you've heard of the tragedy recently of the submarine that was going down to visit the Titanic and imploded. One of the people aboard that was a very dear friend of CCF named Hamish Harding, and he owned an aviation company, and that was his plane that he donated to that purpose. So he actually flew that plane for us with the cheetah to India. It was very special, so that's why we are very upset by his loss.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Molly wants to know, would love to more about your experience as working volunteers, would love to know more about the process of reintroduction in India and ensure the introduced cheetah safety.
Yeah.
Marcia, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
Sure, I can talk about the volunteer, working guest volunteer. So that was pretty amazing. I signed up as a working guest. You can sign up for 2 weeks or 4 weeks. There's a lot of information on the cheetah.org webpage as well. But I went there with no experience, as far as I'm not a vet tech or a vet or ecologist. I just wanted to learn more about cheetahs and the communication and education. And I just went over there, and yeah, I spent 2.5 weeks, and I learned how cheetahs are fed, how they're cared for. I helped with the puppies that came, and worked with the vet and the dogs. Went out to the communities and learned how CCF is educating local communities and farmers. It was a life changer. And you can private message me if you'd like. You can reach me at Marcia Sivek at cheetah.org, I believe. And ask me any personal questions. I can go into more detail on that. So yeah. And Jess was also there for several weeks as well, and worked at the facility in Namibia and Somaliland. So yeah.
There's an interesting question from Mr. Ball. Mr. Ball, we could either bring you on live to ask your question, or we could ask it. So either way, why don't we'll bring you in, just because that's
okay.
Add to the spotlight.
There's another half to Molly's question as well, if you would like.
Oh, I'm sorry for jumping the gun there.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I noticed that poster informing that wildlife trafficking is illegal was in English. Is that for our benefit, or is English widely spoken in Somaliland?
English is widely spoken in Somaliland. In the city, we actually have that poster available in both versions. The poster is available in Somali and in I cannot remember the other language it's in, but it's in Somali and English, because a lot of people in Hargeisa speak English, and then for the surrounding regions it has been translated to Somali.
Okay, so I'm more inclined to visit there now.
Yes, so I created that poster, so I know it was translated into 2 languages, and having been to Somaliland, many people do speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may, one more comment. I'm less likely to be a volunteer on site because for me, roughing it is when room service cuts out at 10. But looking for opportunities to volunteer, like in North America, like, you know, to do whatever you can is also important to me. So,
Of course.
Yeah,
And
we're always looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, any skill that can be offered, any way of volunteering, whether holding events or getting people together, education, anything is welcome.
well, I always offer my skills as a data analyst and a cybersecurity individual. So,
thank you.
That skill set is really, really, really important. Thank you.
Yeah.
well, I haven't been taken up on that offer, but whenever you count something, I'm there.
It's not often that we have a need for something like that, but I assure you, if we do, you will be called.
Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you. And I think, yeah, Molly had a second half to the question, I think.
Did you want me to answer that, Marcia?
Yeah, can you? Because I'm not, I'm not up to speed on that.
No problem. I'll answer Molly's question, and then I'll quickly answer Karen's question.
Okay.
So Karen, I'll answer yours first because it's very short. Karen says, I'm not sure what you meant by a cheetah confiscation. What we mean is that in Somaliland, what is happening is locals are finding a cheetah mother. They are either shooting her or they are chasing her away from the nest and then taking the babies. And when they take the babies, sometimes it takes a week or more before they get them to the border in order to ship them across the ocean. Sometimes it's very quickly. It all depends on what they've coordinated. So what we mean by confiscated is that means that the government has stepped in and taken the cheetah from those people and then reprimanded them in some way. So the animals have been removed from their care. That's a confiscation. Molly, the second half to your question, the process of the reintroduction to India was incredibly well thought out. It went on for 10 years. This process started 10 years ago, and basically they had meeting after meeting after meeting of important individuals in both countries, where they discussed what would be the best habitat, where would be the best place to release them, what animals would be good candidates, how many male to female ratios they wanted, who was going to be in charge. It was very intense. And once they worked out all of those bugs, which again took 10 years, what they did was they created Kuno National Park was the region that they decided on. They created what's called bomas, these like small, not super small, but like probably like the size of an enclosure you'd see at a zoo, if not a little bigger, areas that they would keep the individual cheetahs in when they first brought them in, so that they could get used to the area, used to the habitat, used to the climate, and then they would keep them there for a few weeks, and that would give the animals the opportunity to still hunt if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. They would be fed if they were not able to hunt. And so it kind of got them acclimated. And then once the animals were brought into India and they were put into these bomas, as each individual animal became comfortable with their environment and they had all been seen hunting and successfully hunting several times, and we knew that they were healthy and they were acclimated, then they were released with a radio collar on out into the park itself. So it was very intense, and people are continuously monitoring each one of these cats. And when there have been any issues, because they have the radio collars on, we're able to locate where they are in the park and bring them back into the bomas to ensure their safety before they are re-released. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Are there any more questions out there before we start with the fun part?
No, this is all fun, because also
Yeah.
we're folks in this community are really interested in not just observing wildlife, but we realize our place in conservation and preservation of all the species that share this planet with us. And so this is really relevant. If there are other questions that kind of occur to people as this is going on, please keep track of those. You can drop them into the chat, and we'll try to answer those at the end of a little workshop on drawing cheetahs. And then, so we will return to our friends at Cheetah Conservation Fund after a word from our pencils. Should we go to that part now?
Yeah, I think so. I think that'll be good.
All right.
I'll go ahead and put myself on mute here too.
All right. I'm going to. Hi. All right. Let's talk drawing cheetahs. So drawing cheetahs is really, really fun. If you want to do this live in person, I've just put up on my website a class on that I'm going to be leading in Tanzania. And we have good chances of observing cheetahs there, and folks are invited to join me there if that sounds like fun. It'll be a nature journaling expedition. I'm going to drop into the chat right now. Whoop. That little link. It's a link to this page. It's a page with a picture of a skeleton of a cheetah, which we're going to be using just to sort of think about cheetah proportions. And there's also kind of a ghosted out one on the bottom of it that you can also use. I'll be demonstrating kind of how to use this, because we're going to get an understanding of the cheetah from the inside out. And that helps us be able to draw them. So cheetahs they're really, really leggy. And so understanding what is going on with the proportions of these legs helps a lot. And the proportions are also really, 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 really weird. So if you've drawn house cats or lions or tigers or any other kind of cats, you're going to find you start drawing cheetahs and it feels wrong. You're going to be like, they can't look like that. They, those proportions are really off. So let's take a look at a little bit about drawing cheetahs. And we're going to see what we can do to help us to help us be able to first understand what we see, and then we're going to get all that business down on paper. All right, and go. That's when screen you're supposed to. Oh, it's going the wrong way. That's right. So here's a picture of a cheetah, and here is a picture of a leopard. I found this on the Thompson Safari webpage, and I think it is a great comparison. And what I want people just to notice is how powerful and just don't mess with me that leopard is. And the cheetah just kind of is looking a little bit cute over there, right? So let's notice what's going on here with the proportions. Big, thick legs, big, chunky body on that leopard. Look at how small, how tiny that cheetah's head is. Doesn't that look like somebody drew it wrong? So there's a tiny little head on the cheetah. And but that leopard is just built with power in every part of its body. The leopard has proportions that are a little bit more similar to cats that we're familiar with. The cheetah just looks like somebody drew it wrong. So that's something we have to accept just from the start. Whoops, we're going the wrong way. Let's try this way, and bam. All right, so here's a cheetah, and look at how small that head is. Right? That's crazy. And also notice that long body and crazy long legs sticking out. You can see all these joints. You can see that it has, there's that back leg kind of looks like a backwards facing backwards facing knee. That's actually its heel. So it's got a knee, it's got a heel, it's got a foot sticking down. Its elbow in the front is right up at the same level as its body. And so let's now, here's another picture of a skeleton of a cheetah. And I want people just to observe how small this head is. So this one is in a running position, and look at that. Also notice that crazy curve. Just take your finger on your screen and put fingerprints on your screen. So to feel that curve, feel the motion of that curve, right? We'll be talking more about that curve in just a moment, right? So here, one more picture of the cheetah. And what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at at the document camera here. And actually, let's see if we can get Keynote and the document camera here. All right, we see these here. So if you have that skeleton page already out, let's just notice a few things. Actually, Marcia, unmute yourself for a moment. I've got a question. When I am wiggling my pointer on the screen like this, can you see my pointer?
I cannot see it, no.
No. Okay. So we have so on a cheetah, there's a tiny little head. There is a long spinal column. The front leg consists of, just like yours, a shoulder blade, an upper arm, a lower arm, and its hand. So this part here is its lower arm. And I actually need to do a little change in my in the proportions on this. Actually my elbow should be up here, so I'm just going to extend my elbow up here on future iterations. I'll try to improve that. I've got a knee, I have a hip, a knee. This is its heel, way up here off the ground. And notice that this back leg is all bent. The back leg is bent. The front leg is pretty straight. So the purpose of back legs that attach directly into the hip bone, which is attached directly to the skeleton, is for pushing off and giving you power. There are muscles that attach to this, and there's, first of all, a big set of muscles that goes from the hip bone here out like this to the knee. And also on the back, it goes from the hip bone and it actually fans out like that. So that gives the back part of this leg kind of a keystone shape. It's bigger back here. It's smaller up here. Most animals that you'll see have more muscle mass closer to the body. As you get further out on the limb, the legs get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So the same thing you see on this part of the leg, there's a muscle that attaches on the back part right here, the back part of this leg bone, the upper leg bone, also called your humerus. Not your humerus, what am I saying? That's your femur. And it attaches to the top of the heel here. And that's your gastrocnemius muscle. So that's your calf muscle. And it's a little triangle so that it's big up here and then small down here. So with bearing that in mind, we have a leg form in the front that is big. And then from where the knee is, you're bending backwards, smaller, and then it is standing on its toes. So this is its foot, and you're standing on the toes. Let's contrast that with what's happening in the front. Lots of muscles back here. The muscles in the front are not as big and strong. So in the front, you have muscles that attach from the, we'll do this the same way. We'll go up here from the shoulder blade. And those attach back here onto the elbow. But notice that those muscles are not as big. There's a few muscles in the front, the biceps, it's the triceps in the back, biceps in the front here. But this gives you a small keystone up here in the front that then attaches to a small, there's sort of very thin muscles that kind of come around here. And everything on the bottom on the foot is going to be operated by tendons. So it gets really, really skinny out there. The shoulder blade is not fused into the spine the way that the hips are. If you have a cat at home and you get your cat to walk towards you, each time as you look, as it walks towards you, it's a little bit of my makeup, as it walks towards you, you'll see on the weighted side of its body, that side's shoulder blade will pop up. The shoulder blades are on the sides of the body. So they do this as the cat walks. When it puts weight on this foot, that one pops up. So that actually works as a shock absorber. When a leg comes down and it hits the ground, that it has a little bit of a push up on that side. That gives you a little bit of shock absorber on that side. So you'll see kind of a bump up there. And so what does this mean down here on our friend? Here we have an upper leg. You have lower leg that is, so here's your shoulder blade. Your upper leg is a little bit thick, but not nearly as big as this. You then come down skinnier, and it's the same thing. If you take a look at my hand here, if my hand is flat on the ground, like imagine this being a foot flat on the ground, your heel, and then all your toes flat. If you run, you come up off of that heel goes off the ground. So in the front and the back, they're on their toes, but these bones here in your hand, or these bones here in your foot, these ones right in here, in your instep, that's what's making this part of the foot. And these bones here are what are making this part of the foot. So you have a little joint there, and you're walking on your toes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this into the body, and from a ridiculously small head, you don't need a super big, powerful neck. Your body is going to be lean. And then you have a long tail coming off the back side. As you're running around, this tail helps you kind of bank into turns. So those are your general proportions. So if you, at first you think like, oh no, how do I remember all these little twists and turns? I don't want to draw this leg wrong. Here's the secret. The front is a column coming straight down for you to be able to sort of support your weight. So the fewer bends there are in this, the easier it is for the cheetah to have this be lightweight. If we can just kind of lock these bones up, you get a big column here. The back is a big spring. The back is a big spring. And so think of a little S, an angular S. coming down here. So in the back, you can, it's going to be, if it locks the leg up, it can S out there, and then you put little toes on the bottom, little toes, right? An S with toes. And if you're used to drawing deer or cows or horses or lots of other critters, what you're going to find is on their body, they'll have the same basic setup, but the knee is at the same height as the body. So if you're drawing a deer, for instance, you would have something like this, where in the front, you'd have straight coming down. In the back, you would just have that, because this part of the bone is hidden up against the body. Here's your little deer, the little Thompson's gazelle, who's rather worried about this being this close to a cheetah, right? So on the Thompson's gazelle, little Tommy, you find this shape. But notice that on the cheetah, the knee is down here below the level of the body. And so that gives you this full S shape, right? So there's this full S shape. That comes down in the back. I find that's a useful way to simplify the anatomy. If you get the S in the back and the column in the front, and then you go from I'm big, I'm medium, I'm small, I'm big, I'm medium, I'm small, on those different parts of the S, that's going to work for you for simplifying the skeleton. And if anybody has to leave early, don't worry. We'll record this, and you can check this out later. Molly, thank you so much for joining us. So that's a little introduction to the skeleton. What we're going to do now is take a look at the head of the critter. And we're going to very, very quickly look at the front and then at the side of the head. But that's all in service of drawing this from, we're going to really work on what we call the 3/4 view. And I'll show you what that is and why we do that in just a moment. So for drawing the head of one of these from the front, and we're going to do this really quick, and we're going to do a front quick, side quick, and then we're going to take our time on what's called the 3/4 view. And that's the view of any animal that I really strongly recommend that all of us artists get comfortable playing with, right? For the front, what I think about is a ball for the head. Let's see if I can. Whoop. A ball for sort of the brain case. And I want to get the features on it symmetrical. So I put a line down the middle of it. And I'm going to put a line across it to get my eyes. I don't want one eye up high and one eye down low. Now, if the animal is looking towards me with its nose kind of looking up at me, its nose is going to be up here, can be even on the same line as the eyes. This one has its head tilted down more, so its nose is further down. We're used to looking at human faces, and you'll find there are all these sort of diagrams where kind of to help people draw human faces, where you kind of make a plus, and then exactly halfway through the head, that's where you're putting your eyes in. And then there are all these specific measurements about how far down you go for the mouth and how far down you go for the nose. This little approach of the eyes are always halfway down, the nose is then a certain distance down from that, the mouth is a certain distance down from that, does not apply to drawing animals. And the reason is that, let me grab an animal here. This one with a long nose to kind of make this more clear. If an animal is looking straight at you, let's back off this. Whoop. and here. If an animal is looking straight at you, the eyes whoop, whoop, line up with the nose. But all it has to do is turn its head down slightly like this, and then the eyes are high on the head and the nose is even further. Looking down, if it lowers its head even more. So as an animal is turning its head like this, the relative position of the nose and mouth and eyes changes dramatically. You don't get that in human heads. And because we're used to drawing, sort of seeing all these sort of measured things of drawing human heads, we're used to that idea. But that sort of having really set measurements of how far you go down for each of for where the nose is, for the mouth, that doesn't apply for drawing the rest of the animals. Works great for human beings. Right, so let's go. There we are. Here's a little Duma. Not Duca, but Duma. All right, no Duca in the Dumas. All right, this one's nose is a little bit further down. It's got a little mouth that's further down. What I'm doing is just kind of eyeballing it. And what I want to do is to think to myself, how far apart are the eyes? Ooh, let's zoom down here again. Whoop, whoop. How far apart are the eyes? This is a critical thing, and I like to get it in a front view early. What I do is I think to myself, how many eyeballs is, notice the center line? You could fit a whole other eye between that line that goes down the middle of the cheetah's face. So if you could fit an eye in here and an eye in here, and then have an eye in here, there's about 2 eyes between that critter's 2 eyes. So I use the eyeball as kind of a measuring tool. And if I've got an eye that is roughly here and an eye that is roughly here, I'm going to get my eyes the right distance apart. Cheetah has a very cute heart-shaped nose. And the mouth, so you kind of have this, here's your nose, here's your little connector between those two. Kind of a neat little pattern like that. I'm going to put a little muzzle ball in here lightly. And the positions of where the ears start are also going to be different on as it turns its head up and down. So I look to sort of relative to these eyes, these ears are coming from some point above that. Notice I'm drawing a line across so that I get those the same distance apart on either side. And they're going down to some place below the ears. Then I'm going to look at what is the angle here on the head from here to the start of the ear. So I'm blocking in these features on the head. I'm going to now just use this framework to draw in a few more details. So you'll see on a lot of cats, really strong blacks around the eyes. Imagine a line going diagonally across the eye here from this little point that sticks out on the side of the eye to the bottom corner of the eye down here. Cheetahs have, on different individuals, marks kind of coming up like this and this, different sizes on different individuals. Actually, all the spots on the faces of all the cats are going to be different sizes on different individuals. Notice that the pupil is not, don't draw your eye like this with the pupil right in the middle. That pupil, there you're seeing more it's closer to the top than it is to the bottom. And then there's this cool little stripe that comes in and wraps around the outside of the muzzle. Another thing that's a very cheetah thing is coming out from the edge of the eye here and down the side are these little tear marks. You'll see those coming out. That's just very kind of quick and dirty. Oh, actually, let's talk about ear for just a second. A little bit of a kind of an ear movement. So this little angle up here is going to be very important for getting the shape of my ear. I want to kind of get that angle there and then say, all right, this ear is going to swoop down like this. But how do I draw all that fluff in the ear? Don't do this. Don't say like, here's my ear. And I see lots of hairs in here and then less hair here. Because notice that there are big long hairs here, but if I draw those in, I now have something dark here where it's lightest. So it's got all these big white hairs in this area here, but they're light colored. And so if I draw them in, I will have a dark thing where the light thing is. What I often will do is I will kind of block in where that sort of a mark is. And then what I do is I put the shading on the other side of that. And I can make this just sort of a little bit of a kind of a dark edge. So what I'm not doing here is I'm not sort of drawing in all those hairs. I'm letting that be light colored. And I can let that kind of come to the edge of the ear. We'll do the same thing over here, just to kind of emphasize that if I've got long hairs in here and long hairs in here, what I'm doing is I'm drawing in the hairs, edges, where I see that dark part. I draw the dark part, not the light part. That really helps with ears. You can use this on cheetahs. You can use this on lots and lots of critters. What a lot of people do is they'll draw in the long hairs that they see, and then they're sad. Oh. So this is the very short shrift I'm intentionally giving to the front view. We're also going to really not spend a lot of time on the side view. Right? Here, notice two things. You've got that you have that big stripe on the side of the nose, kind of coming down from the eye and then wrapping around to the back of the whisker pad. You also have from the corner of the eye, those little teardrops coming down. Again, there'll be different patterns on each critter. I'm going to start the same way. I start with a ball. And then I'm going to attach onto the ball a little box. And what that is, I know this is a dog skull, that's the cranium, the ball, and then the snout, the muzzle that is put onto it. So cats have much smaller muzzles than dogs do. Its eye is going to be in here close to where sort of the muzzle attaches. We have a little bit of hood in here. My ear is going to start high on the head. So usually you have nose, eye, and ear kind of close in a line sort of towards the top of the heads of critters. And that's going to be up in this area. And have a nose. For the mouth, in this, I sort of think of there's a ball in here of that whisker pad, and then a little chin that sticks out underneath it. for drawing in the details, so again, I start lightly, just sort of blocking these things in. To draw the details, here in this view, the eye was basically a round shape. Oh, what was that? Oh, this is interesting. Let's see. Saw a little thumbs down up here that I think. The eye was a round shape. But if you're looking at a predator from the side, predators, when they're hunting you, they're staring at you. Predators from the side, you're seeing the side of the eye. So you have the side of the lens, and then you have this little Y shape. So the shape of the eye from the side is totally, totally different. So I've got an eye, and I like to kind of build up a little bit of kind of fur and fluff around the eye to sort of set that eye into the head. So there's a little bit of a fuzz bump in there. We have a nose that comes out. And what we're seeing here in the nose is there's a slit here. That is where the nostril is. And then there's the pad. So that sort of the bottom of that slit is often a darker form. Our mouth comes down and back up in a little smile. But don't make that line too hard, because notice it's hard to see through there. Give it a little bit of a chin. If you give it a really big chin, it'll look like a lion. So give it a small chin. And put a few little kind of ticks out like that, just to sort of suggest that it's fuzzy. And put a few ticks in here. Any place where it's kind of fuzzy, I can put a few of those just little lines that kind of cross the kind of the contour. And you'll get the sense like, oh, it's a little bit fuzzy in there. And we're going to do the same thing in here in the ear. This area in here, I'm going to leave white. And what I'm going to do up in here, this, darker. And you can give them a few little kind of hints of some hairs in there. But you want the to sort of leave that most of that sort of as a pile of lighter hairs. Now, this line comes in here. It's going to cut across the back of the whisker bed. Down here across the whisker bed. And we're going to have those little tears. Each cheetah has its own signature, its own fingerprint of dots on the side of its head. But after spending time with them, Marcia was probably able to identify a bunch of the individuals that she was working with by their face patterns. Ask her about that later. I made my eye too big. Well, it's kind of anime. So there's some thoughts from the side. But I think the really interesting view is when you get to what's called the three-quarter view. And this is the one that many artists shy away from. They're worried to do this. They say like, oh no, that's gonna be scary to do. But this is actually the most essential view of an animal's head, because there's only, of the 360 degrees that you could see an animal's face, there's only 1 degree where it's looking straight at you. There's only 1 degree where it's in a perfect profile. All the rest of the 360 degrees, it's going to be some 3/4 view angle. So it could be doing this, where you see a little bit of the far side eye, or this, where you see more of the far side eye, or this, where you see more of the far side eye, but it's still not a straight up front or side view. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button. So we're going to just fast forward here through all these beasties. You see that? So here, this is a 3/4 view. This is a 3/4 view. This is a 3/4 view. Most of what you see is 3/4 views, but everybody practices the side view and the front view. But most often what you're going to see is a 3/4 view. So let's just break down how to play with that. All right. It's going to start the same way. Here's a ball. Whoops, let's do a ball on the screen. That will help. All right. So there's our ball. Now, think about this kind of like a moon. Whoop, there's a moon. And if I got a crescent across that moon, all right, it's going to wrap and curve there. This cheetah's center line is, if there was around the ball of its head, see that line going down its forehead? Follow that. That's your center line. That's your center line. And that center line is going to come out on this little snout that comes out. So I'm going to take a little box and I'm going to put it in here. All right, I see where the top of one eye, there's the top of my box. All right, now this line, I'm going to put another line parallel with that. This line, these 2 lines are going to be parallel. This is my end of my nose. Right? From here, I'm going to draw a line down and equidistant on the other side there, on the either side of that little center line. So centered on that little center line. And then I've got the front of my muzzle here. And I'm going to draw another box, parallel line, parallel line. And then I'm going to bring that back to my head. And I can stick that in with a little curved line there as a little snout sticking out. Let's go down the middle of this snout. The midline of the snout is here. Midline of the snout then turns down here. And it also can't hurt just to sort of think of a little bit of this part as also rounded as a ball. So if I put a little center line around that ball, it's going to come around there. All right. So I've put essentially, I have a ball with a center line. I have this snout mechanism sticking out from that, and I'm putting a ball into that. That's my mental model for a 3/4 view of any critter's head. So I use this all the time. Now, as I go into this, there are the eyes, the features on the side of the head that are closest to me are going to be fairly straightforward. They're going to be kind of like halfway between the side view that I've seen in the front view. But the ones on the far side of the head are going to be a totally different story. So let's first just notice this. Look at the eye on the far side. I barely see it. Look at the nostril on the far side. I don't see it. Look at how much of the mouth I see on the far side. Not very much. But you know how our brains love symmetry? This is where you have to know that your brain loves symmetry, and you have to fight against your urge to make this symmetrical. Because what your brain is going to want to do is to make this eye like this eye, this side of the nose like this side of the nose, this side of the mouth like this side of the mouth. Right? So symmetry, 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 we have to kind of let it go. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to, on this side, I have my eye coming up. I have the front part of my eye. I'm going to sort of draw along the bottom of the eye and then up to a corner. There's my center line of the head. On the other side, I'm not going to make this side of my muzzle the same distance as this, because it's wrapping around a little bit. This side will be a little bit closer. See, this side, your brain wants symmetry. So it says this side from here to the center should be the same length as this side. But I'm gonna break that. All right. So our edge of our eye, we're actually just seeing a little bit of the other eye right in here. Cute little eyelashes. For my nose, we're coming across the top of the nose here, back a little bit, and down. A little bit of a down. And think how easy it would be to make this side of the mouth a big line. But it's not. I have to make that far side. So now I'm missing, I'm kind of going like, oh, I'm not kind of right on where my guidelines are, but I'm just going to let those go. A little bit of cheek. Those guidelines are good to get you generally started, but then you want to be able to move away from them, right? You're not locked into the guidelines that you give yourself. A little bit of a brow ridge there. Make its head slightly fuzzy in this area. So I gave you some fuzzy lines right down there too. Our line comes in from our eye, down, and then we're going to wrap around the side of the face here. That whole eye looks dark to me. There's probably a pupil sitting somewhere in there, but I don't really know where. Isn't it hard to kind of just do that for that far side eye? That's the far side eye, the far side corner of the mouth. These are the things that you just have to really pay attention to, because your brain wants to do all that symmetrically. But if you're able to let go of that, then you'll be able to draw these things two dimensions. Let's place the ear, and then we're going to move on to a whole body of a cheetah. All right, so my ear, where is it going to start? If I draw a line back from my eye, it's going to start a little bit above that. I don't want it too close. It's going to end up a little bit below that, sort of at a line like that. And I'm going to use the same trick where I'm going to just give a little bit of shadow in there. What about the other ear? This is my eye line. Base of my ear is going to be here. The tip of my ear is going to be somewhere in here. See what I just did? Parallel with my eyes. I don't want my ear to be out, not be parallel with my eyes. So if the top of my nose is a line parallel this way, my eyes are aligned parallel this way. The top of the ear is going to be somewhere sticking out in here. Each little one has its own special pattern of spots, its own little spot fingerprint on the side of the face. Such cool looking animals. A few other things that really help. I love this little mark above the eyes. There's a little bit of 3/4 view Duma face. Now, the amount of that eye is going to change depending on what view the critter gives you. But it's those same principles. The closer you get to it looking straight at you, the more symmetrical it becomes. But a little bit of a turn of the head, and you just have to go expect asymmetry. So now, this is the part that we've been waiting for. Let's think a little bit about these postures as they're running. First of all, it is impossible for your eyes to catch the positions of the legs in motion. So you're out there, you say, I just want to draw what I see. If a cheetah starts running, there's a blur underneath it. You can't see it. You can't see it at all. I'm walking across my room here for a moment to see if I can this reminded me of sketch. I should have had this. I just thought of it now. I thought, yeah, this would be cool for you guys to see. And I can't find the book. That's what happens when you loan your books to people. Or maybe I should just have fewer books, but maybe we don't need it. But yeah, if things are running fast, you can't follow those legs. But let's just look kind of anatomically here. Let's notice a few things. Both of these cheetahs are in a state of running that is called suspension. It is suspended in the air. None of its legs are on the ground. None of its legs are on the ground. So this top one, its legs are gathered together. That's called gathered suspension. The one below it, the legs are outstretched. That's called extended suspension. So I've got my gathered and my suspended extensions. And in those, let's notice two things. One, in gathered suspension, the back is humped up. It's arched. In extended suspension, the back is straightened out. So part of what it's doing to get power in its run, the reason that the cheetah goes so fast, or one reason is that it's not just long legs and pushing off of these back long legs. It's actually using its spine to contract and extend. So as it's pushing off with its legs, it also pushes off with its spine and extends its spine. So when the legs are gathered together, the back is arched. When they are extended, they are the back is straight. The other thing that I'd like you to notice is that the legs are not symmetrical. The legs are not in a symmetrical position. So you see those back legs, they're a little bit staggered. Those front legs are staggered. So we have this sort of rocking horse image in our head of the position that a running creature should take. And so what people will do, and this kind of gets us into trouble, we'll say like, oh, if you're a critter with, you know, your gathered suspension, my front leg is going to be here, and the front leg from the other side is going to be doing the same thing. Here's my shoulder blade. Here is my forearm. If my back leg, my front legs, elbow, little paw out here. And what people will do is they'll draw these legs symmetrically. But what you're actually going to see is that the other one will be they will not be symmetrical with each other. So the next one will be, maybe there's down there, be up here. Now, it is impossible for us as human beings to get the exact positions of these legs in motion. So and it wasn't until a photographer named Edward Muybridge did high-speed photography, and that we started to kind of get information about the exact positions that things have their legs in. So what I do when I go out into the field, and so is I'm going to bring up a web page here. I bring a little cheat sheet with me that has all the leg positions on it, and I can refer back to that. So if I go to, well, let's see here. So here's my web page. I've got a free download. I'm going to go to my store, and here it is. This is the mammal gaits chart. And it's $0. You hit add to your cart and $0. You can scroll down and join the summer Tanzania safari. But here you can check this out. You go here, you can get this thing for free. And what it is this thing that has the positions with extended suspensions, gathered suspensions. It's got all the different leg positions and all the gaits of all the different animals that you'll see. And so if you're wanting to have kind of a cheat sheet, this is really, really, really useful to use. You can just, you add it to your cart and it's a free download. So that is something that helps us be able to draw this. So let's just sort of notice that gathered suspension, extended suspension. Second. My computer's not advancing the slides. Come on, slide. You can do it. Let's try this. I'm going to go here. There we go. So here's a great example of, here we go. So take a look at this. So this is gathered suspension. The outside legs are swinging around. The front legs go through the middle. Notice that this cat has its claws extended. When cheetahs are running, their claws extend to give them greater grip into the ground. Isn't that cool? So in extended suspension, notice that the legs are not symmetrical with each other, right? So it's got one arm forward, one arm back. Wow, that's so skinny. Gathered suspension, right? See, this is why having a diagram that shows you those leg positions is really, really useful, because you're just going to see a blur out there. But follow those two back legs on the outside, not symmetrically positioned. The two front legs passing through the middle of those, again, not positioned. Back is arched because it's in gathered suspension. So those are the general rules to the motion of the cheetah. Let's check this out. This was made by National Geographic. Just here's foot, push off, extended suspension. Notice the asymmetry, feet land separately, one lands now. Those feet pass through the middle and gathered. One foot, the other foot, we're going to push off. We're straightening that spine. Reach for it, Front feet come down straight. Notice the front feet bend as they're coming forward, but when they hit the ground, they are going to be straight. And look at the shoulder blades move. Watch the shoulder blade. Hit there, see that shoulder blade pop up? Gathered, making a little adjustment there. Isn't that's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But for drawing these things in a running pose, again, the reference material, so important, but also having a general understanding of what you should expect to see is going to help you. Last little bit here, I want to take a look at the patterns that are on these. The one on the left is a very unusual version of a cheetah pattern. Sorry, the one on the right. Usually you see spots all over, but those spots are actually organized in lines. There are lines of spots, as you can see from our friend on the right. And when you get to the tip of the tail, you have, actually, let's not talk about tip of the tail. The little cub here shows you another variation that you can get in some cheetahs that have a really cool mane. You can get cheetahs with a mane. But the rest of the body is spots. So on the legs, you often have bigger spots. The tip of the tail, the spots go out and get larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. On the body, tiny little spots and sort of smaller spots. And on the head, tiny spots. So on the head and face, you've got tiny spots. Let's take a look at what spots do to help you be able to draw the contours of this. So I'm going to draw let's draw just a cylinder here. If I've got a cylinder and there are spots on it, if there's a spot that is facing towards me, I'm going to see it like that. If the spot, though, is on this surface that is turning away from me, the same size spot will appear as a little line. So, and something in between those two will be a little oval. So as I'm putting in spots on this, I want to be aware of where I am relative to the edges. And the same is true with putting spots on a cheetah. Let's take a look at this cheetah. And note on the back, as you go over the top, there are those little ovals. On the hip here, on the point of its hip, you can see ones that are less oval, kind of close to that edge, but those are on a surface that is turned towards you. And then it turns towards you even more, and you get a great big circle. The ones that are pointing straight up are little skinny things. Now take a look at the front of the cheetah and notice how going down the leg there, on that front leg, you have ones that are skinny ovals, ones that are in the middle that are big circles, ones that are towards the back, they get skinny oval again. So as we are putting spots on our critter, we can use those spots to help describe the contour of what we're seeing. So generally speaking here, let's look at this overall. On the tail, sort of zebra stripes coming back, fading into spots. Notice where you have spots that are kind of going over the horizon and turning into lines. So as you are drawing something like this, you want to, I put the spots in at the very end. And as you're putting those spots up, you want to pay attention to what is the shape of those to help you describe the form of the object that you have. And that is the end. So what I want to encourage you to do is you can do a very, very simple Google search for cheetahs, and you'll get gazillions of amazing photographs of cheetahs. And cheetahs are wonderful things to study because they all the anatomy is out there in front of you. You've got all this anatomy. You can see, like, there's your shoulder, there's your elbow, there's your wrist, there's your knee, there's your heel. So spend some time kind of looking at them from this kind of perspective and kind of see if you can get yourself to look at the animal and understand what's going on under the hood. The next step is to think about kind of sculpting that pattern on your piece of paper, looking at the photograph. And as you look at that photograph, sort of bear in mind this idea of proportions. Proportions are really important to drawing what we see. How big is one part relative to another? So really focus on those proportions. Can I make that head that small? Those ridiculously long legs, because you're going to have in your head, you've spent so much time with house cats or seeing other kinds of cats, much more than you've seen cheetahs, right? And so that cat model that is in our head is not going to work for the cheetah. So you're going to be stretching your brain to kind of capture those proportions. And the third thing, sort of the third thing that we want to play with is look at that 3/4 view on the head. Can you start to don't just kind of go for ones that are looking straight towards you or a straight little profile there. Go for some of the ones with a 3/4 view, and it will be challenging, but don't worry, you're not making this isn't a drawing to hang on the wall. These are studies that will inform all the rest of the drawings that you do. Just to give yourself a bunch of 3/4 view head studies. And the cheetahs are great to do that. That little line down the center right there on the forehead, that can really help you start to kind of block that in. What are you seeing? Lastly, as you get to putting spots on your body, think of how those spots can define the contours of the shapes that you're looking at. And I think that you'll find that the drawings that you do have additional volume to them. Another way, it's just another cue that you're giving somebody to say, I'm not looking at a flat thing on a piece of paper. You'll give the illusion of depth, and how you handle those spots will be critical for that. I hope that these strategies and techniques are really useful for you in being able to draw the cheetah. And now what we're going to do is we're going to turn back to our friends with the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And any other questions that people have, either for me or from the folks at the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And actually, if we could put into the chat a link for donations to the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Sometimes when people take my classes, I encourage people to make a donation because it supports me and my family. And that is really, really great. Today, I'm asking anybody who's able to make a donation, instead of giving that to me, let's give it to cheetahs and cheetah families. The work that the Cheetah Conservation Fund is doing is a wonderful way of helping these critically endangered species. And I would love to encourage anybody who's able to be a part of that. And also let's put up the links again for people to be able to volunteer with Cheetah Conservation Fund, if you're able to do so, either from the United States or anywhere. You are. Oh, there they are. Check that out. So there are your, we'll also put them into the chat. These ways to volunteer and be able to get involved. Oh, great. Those links are in the chat. So now let's bring in our cheetah friends. I'm going to add into the spotlight Jess here also. Boom, boom, boom. There we are. Hello, hello, hello. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of question and answer. So if anybody's got a question, or if you'd like to share any cheetah sketches that you've done, then you can hold things up to the screen and share those with us. Maybe let's start with questions. We'll start with question and answer, and then we'll do any kind of cheetah art or any cat related art sharing that you'd like to do. Yeah, I agree with Dee Finley, who says cheetahs are fabulous. I mean, aren't they just like that? Seeing that thing in motion, seeing that thing run, and just to think that this, I mean, it's such an iconic beastie that we think to ourselves, they can't possibly be in danger because they're all over like every nature documentary, right? If the number of cheetahs in the world was proportionate to the presence of cheetahs in nature documentaries, cheetahs would have no problem at all, right? But the genetic diversity of cheetahs is incredibly small, and their populations are also really in danger. So if you want to ask a question, there's several ways you can do it. I'm going to be viewing my gallery view. You can turn on your oh, Avea's here. I'm going to make you a co-host too. Thank you for being here. Avea, the mad botanist, in the house.
Hi.
So if anybody's got questions, either for me or for the folks from the Cheetah Conservation Fund, you can just turn on your camera and wave at me. You can also use the raise hand function, and then we'll see your raised hand. And I'm going to.
There's a couple questions coming through. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, just is answering. Yeah, you're on it. Yeah, so somebody asked, Bethany asked, is there any conservation going on for Asiatic cheetahs, or are they pretty much extinct? And Jess answered, there's only 11 Asiatic cheetahs left in the wild, in the world. So, and there is an Iranian cheetah society, and they're doing their best, but it's kind of a difficult thing right now at this point with only 11 left. Yeah.
11 left. I mean, so that really strikes me. That just sort of it shows, we're talking about critical numbers here. And this is a time that we humans who have incredible control over habitat change and ecosystem dynamics. If we sort of sit back and say, like, nature will take care of itself, this species is gone.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it is something where, I like, in theory, the general idea of like, just sort of let nature do its thing. We have done our thing with our nature so much that if we just leave it to laissez-faire, it's not going to work out. Are there any other questions you're seeing?
Let's see, there was one, the impact of droughts on the cheetah population known? I'm not sure. I know Namibia was in a long drought as well as like we were here in California. Jess, do you know that answer? Are there any?
I mean, I can give you a general answer. So basically what you're asking is, does climate change affect cheetahs? And the answer is yes, intensely. We actually just created a presentation at the climate change conference that occurred on Sunday about how climate change affects the cheetahs and how saving the cheetahs can reverse climate change. So pretty much, if there's a drought, the animals, including their prey, first of all, the prey is going to move into areas where it can find water, which will create competition between all of the other predators that are following that prey. So it does affect cheetahs intensely because basically they will be put into situations that they would not otherwise be put in. So they will come into contact with humans, they will come into contact with other predators, and they will be put into a smaller environment than they are used to, which will have devastating consequences because, as you know, cheetahs are often killed by lions, leopards, even baboons take babies, hyenas. So yes, it affects them intensely. I don't have numbers to present to you, but I can tell you that climate change affects cheetahs intensely.
Yeah, and also just we think of when there's a drought, the response of humans, of course, is to we any sort of water source, we're there, and then the wildlife is trying to go into these same places. You think of the cheetahs, like this is a cat, cheetah, you mess with a cheetah, it's gonna, I mean, think of that tiny little head. That tiny little head is, I mean, the cheetah is a lover, not a fighter. Unless you're Thompson's gazelle. Last time I was in Tanzania, there was a group of, was it 2 or 3 cheetahs? I'll have to look back in my journal. And they had a baby wildebeest. And one hyena just walked up and kicked them off of it. And they're just like, right, they snarled, right? But that's about all they could do. So if they are, they're vulnerable, not just to human beings, but they like to be in big open places where you can see for miles, and that works for them.
Yeah.
I see Whitney has a question. All right, Whitney, is it okay if we bring you on screen here?
Yes.
All right, let's see. I'm going to
unmute Whitney.
Yeah, let's see. You can now unmute.
Okay, I was wondering, how long has this been going on for?
How long has what been going on for?
The cheetahs being more endangered.
It's been going on for quite a while. Gosh, I don't know as far as timeline. I know with the genetic bottleneck. Do you know, Jess? It's been
so in the last century. So in the early 1900s, there were over 100,000 cheetah. Yeah. And today there are 7,100.
7,100.
Yeah.
So in the 80s alone, 10,000 animals were killed.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah, Whitney, that's a great question, because we think of, we just sort of have the general feeling like cheetahs, they're fine because we see them everywhere. We see them everywhere because they're everywhere in nature documentaries, right?
And 7,000 sounds like a really big number when you say it out loud, but 7,000 is a really small number considering there are only 31 populations of cheetah left in the world, and 20 of those populations have less than 100 animals.
And
Yeah.
you
If
said
look
that
at
we
the
also
range-
lost,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, if you look at the range map of the world of where cheetahs existed, they existed almost everywhere, and now it's just these pockets like in Namibia and in those areas, with the higher concentrations.
And
So,
Whitney, did that answer your question? Great. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you for caring about these animals.
there is another, yeah, thank you, Whitney. There is another question. Are confiscated young cheetahs turned over to be raised, fostered for re-release? And most of the ones or all of them from Somaliland, they come in pretty bad condition. They're pretty tiny, so they have to be hand raised by humans, and they can't be re-released. Am I saying that correctly, Jess? I don't think that any of those in Somaliland can be released to the wild.
That's correct. So all of the animals that have come in Somaliland have been under the age of 6 months, most of them under the age of 2 months, which means that they've all need to be hand raised in order to survive, and they've had to be habituated to people in order to receive medical care, because they almost all need intense medical care, and it's better to have them habituated and do their medical care easily than to have them afraid every single time that they need a treatment. So the 94 cheetahs that we care for in Somaliland right now are all going to be with us forever, unfortunately. And that is because not only are they habituated to people from being brought in at such a young age, but many, if not most of them, have medical conditions that would not allow them to survive in the wild, that they have sustained while they have been in the confiscation, before they were confiscated. So many of them have diseases that need intense treatment for the rest of their lives, or we have one with half a tail. We've got many with inbreeding issues. We've got some with leg problems, and they would not make it.
You mentioned the inbreeding issues, which is a really interesting thing. We think about the term biodiversity, we think of the numbers of species, but you can also think about biodiversity within a single species. How much genetic diversity is there within that species? And basically, genetically, a cheetah is a cheetah is a cheetah is a cheetah. There's an incredibly small amount of genetic diversity, which means when sisters and brothers are then mating with each other, that you can get you can get all sorts of genetic problems showing up. And also, if a disease pops up that can affect one cheetah, it can affect every cheetah. So these make for really sort of challenging situations. Mr. Ball, I see that you have another question for us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Given the broad range of the cheetah, do you, for your conservation efforts, do you run into challenges where, like your territory crosses a international border? So now do you have to ask permission from the other country? Can you go over there and do your conservation thing?
That's a good question. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you want to answer it, or would you like me to? I don't want to take all your questions, but these are some hard ones.
No, yeah, these are ones where I'm just getting my feet wet with some of these, so I would appreciate the help. But I believe with working with different governments is can be challenging, but it does have to be done if you are crossing borders. Jess can probably go in a little more detail on that. So.
Yes, the answer is that we work with all of the cheetah range countries and all of the cheetah other organizations that are doing the work with the cheetah, whether it be Reintroduction, looking at their genetics. We work with everyone. And so we are actually holding a very large conference in January where we are going to collect every cheetah person from around the world who will possibly join us and sit them all in one room and say, this is what works, and we all need to be doing the same thing. So it's kind of to come up with a one plan approach so that everyone across the board at least knows what everyone is doing and how they can participate and say, we know that this works. We know that this does not work because, as I'm sure you know, and we've explained, the issues with the cheetah are different from each territory. The issues that they have with the cheetah in Namibia are very different than the issues they have with the cheetah in the Horn of Africa. So they cannot be addressed the same way. And the culture is incredibly different. Muslim culture does not like dogs. So giving dogs to farmers in Somaliland is not an option. So it's very different to have to work with different populations and their cultures.
Mhm.
Does that address your question, sir?
Yes, like I'm glad someone's paying attention to it. Like it's not something that you live with, but you're trying to deal with it.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And it's also just think about how hard it is to get us human beings to work with each other. And once we kind of go across a national boundary, sometimes our identity kind of comes into play. And so then sort of the idea of like, how do we pay attention to regional and cultural differences? How do we kind of get people to work across those boundaries for the benefit of a completely different species?
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Let me make a follow-up comment. I just noticed today that the UN is allowing Somalia to again purchase weapons. Is that worrisome to Somaliland? Because I know there have been those political issues.
I mean, I can't address that from a political standpoint, but I can tell you that many of the people who are trafficking the cubs are also involved in other illegal activities. So yes, it could be detrimental.
Thank you for the questions and comments.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. I think Whitney, she may have gotten off, but she had a question about what we can do to stop this. I kind of lost where her question was, but she talked about, let me see if I can find it. Should we be breeding them and or stop hunting them? What would a solution be? And I think we kind of answered that. We're trying to work in all the different countries that have cheetahs. We're trying to work with communities and farmers to stop the retaliatory killings, by using the livestock guarding dogs. We're trying to find these various solutions that these communities can learn to live with these animals. So a lot of this is working with people in education. So I don't know if there's what we can add to that, Jess, if anything.
It's just, I would say, as far as the breeding goes, yes and no. You can't just breed to breed. Cheetahs have a lot of genetic issues, as we've explained, and you have to be very careful about who breeds to who. And cheetahs are also very selective in their partners. So there has to be a very particular process set up
have the right
to
spots.
allow them to breed. Yes, they have to like your spots. And so it's much more complicated than that, as well as you have to have a place for them to go. And that's the bigger issue, is you can have all these cheetah in the world breed, but where are you going to put them? People like to say things with wildlife like, oh, they should all be in the wild, they shouldn't be in zoos. There is no place to put them. You have to have a safe environment and a place that can be monitored in order to release animals. And so zoos, the goal of zoos is to breed and keep a backup stock of animals so that if and when that place is available, the animals are available. But it's a complicated process. So in some places, yes, breeding and reintroducing is great. And in other places, it's not an option. But as Marcia said, working with the people is the absolute number one thing that helps. Education.
So in places where there are cheetahs, if we can stop killing those cheetahs and let them continue to be cheetahs in those cheetah places where they haven't had to have any contact with people. This is a huge priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Reintroduction where possible, but also cheetahs are a great example of this for species across the world. Huge problem is habitat loss. As we convert ecosystems to human managed systems, we reduce the amount of available places that the wild places that wild species can inhabit. And we also, when we move into those areas, then there become these human wildlife conflicts. And so this, think of the loss of habitat as also just a critical element in conservation here.
Mhm.
Yes. Because again, you can have as many as you want, but if there's not a place to put them, or a safe place to put them, or a place where they can find prey, then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, they need a lot of space too. Yeah.
I see that Deborah asked a question about cheetah locomotion. And the question was, when they're walking, are the feet going in the same pattern as they are when they are running? And so that's a really interesting question. This gets into the area of what we call gaits. And that's why that little download that I shared, that is, again, a free download from my website, is really, really useful, because note, the pattern is actually different. So there are different patterns for a walk versus a run. There are different types of runs, running patterns that animals do, and they have the legs in different positions. I'll show you that if you want to. This is what happens in the walk. Is that, oops, we need to tilt the camera down a little bit more. If I'm a cheetah and I'm on my toes, as I bring this foot here forward to where this hand was, this foot then comes off the ground, and I put that forward there. I then, as I lean forward, this foot comes up, and this hand here moves and comes up. So essentially, as the front foot is on the ground, the back foot comes up to take that same place, and then the front foot goes forward. So if you, I'll get my head back.
You must have been a twister. Yeah.
If you look at the track patterns that are made when they're walking, it sometimes looks like the cheetah has kind of popped up onto its back feet and gone right, left, right, left, right, left, because the back foot is coming down where the front foot was. Because that let's say that this is my back foot and this is my front foot. This foot is coming up, this one then leaves, and then this one goes down where the other one was. So it's a different pattern. If you look at a baby crawling across the floor, they do very much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the walking gaits are also in the handout that is the download that I described. Deborah, did that answer your question? Excellent. Cheetah yoga.
I know I was going to say you're good at twister probably too. Let's see. Oh
yeah, Avea just put up into the chat the link for getting that gaits handout. Thank you so much for that, Avea.
Thanks, Avea. Yeah. Yeah, does anyone have any artwork that they want to show off? Maybe we should do that.
Yes. So let's do a little, anybody who has any relevant cheetah share, hop over to my gallery. You can use the raise hand function. Or just wave at me. Let's go over to the Hobbs family and join folks there. I'm going to add you into the spotlight. Hey there. Thank you for being with us. You can now unmute.
Oh, they're there.
Hey there. Actually, I'm going to make everybody else's, my screen small. I'm going to remove all our spotlights to make whatever you put on the screen bigger.
Yay, good idea.
And we'd love to see what you've been up to.
Oh, lovely.
Good.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that 3/4 view. It's weird, it's challenging, but lean into that one and it will pay off in ways you cannot imagine. You'll find you use that view a million times. Really well done. Really well done. I like the way you are constructing those.
Fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. I like your fingernail polish too.
That's really cool.
Very good.
That's awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
That's really fun. And let's see, I'm going to pop over to the gallery view again. You can, anything you want to share, you can just hold that up to the screen and we'll see that you want, or you can use the raise hand function. Hey, it's Spider-Man. Oh, Jess did some sketching too.
Oh, yay. I couldn't do any. Yeah. Oh, nice, Jess.
Oh, yeah.
He's been eating too many donuts.
Well, that's sometimes when they come in and they're emaciated into the rehab center there.
Yep.
There's nothing like a Krispy Kreme or two
It's
that
true.
will put the pep back into the step of a cheetah.
That's the spirit.
Yep.
You. And well, I'm going to bring Marcia back in. I would like to thank the both of you. Actually, first of all, Marcia, do you want to tell folks a little bit about BeProvided Conservation Radio? Because you do a lot of stuff to help people kind of shine a really useful spotlight on conservation projects around the world. Sure.
So I started BeProvided Conservation Radio actually after my working guest trip to Namibia to CCF. I saw all these people doing this wonderful work and, providing hope for all these different animals like the cheetah or elephants or whatever it may be. So I wanted to share their stories. So I came home and started seeking out people who are working with animals and wildlife in any way, shape, or form, whether it's through art, conservation, ecology, whatever, authors of books. So I started to share their stories, hopefully to provide hope, to show that things can be done in any way, shape, or form, whether it's through music, art, the law, whatever, writing, just getting the word out there to help animals and wildlife survive as much as we can. And, climate change is a big thing, that it's our big nemesis right now. So that's always a challenge, but hopefully we can provide some hope and get people more motivated to pay attention to what's going on. So thank you. So it's BeProvided Conservation Radio. You can find it at my website. Thank you for posting the link at beprovided.com. So I'm speaking tomorrow to the orangutan project. So that should be fun. Yeah.
And people can also subscribe there.
Yep. And you can find it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. It's pretty widespread. So yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Jess and Marcia, I want to thank both of you for the work, the continued work that you are doing on behalf of conservation. As many of us sort of fall in love with the natural world through nature journaling or other ways, we're motivated to step up and protect, preserve, conserve the species and habitats that we share on this planet. And the work that you're doing is really important. And as our population continues to grow, it's just going to become even more important. And this is good work. As we kind of come into this season, often where we kind of recognize the abundance in our lives, I want to encourage people who are able to support conservation projects like these, that together we can do a lot. Sometimes when we sort of sit around and we kind of, you can kind of find yourself like doom scrolling and finding all the things that are wrong in the world. The work that you're doing is an example of something that is right in the world, and finding those sorts of projects and connecting with them makes our own lives brighter and this world better. As Avea just made a comment in the chat, reminding us it's not just about these species, but also the ecosystems that they're a part of.
Right. It's also the people, that live in these areas. Yeah.
That's
That
right.
need to survive. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you too for the work that you do. I know so many people who have learned how to support nature and love nature through your artwork and your education lessons and your work with everything you do. So thank you, with Wild Wonders, with everything. Yeah.
I'm going to bring in my co-host Avea, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this is this is the mad botanist herself, often
Good to see you.
Also very involved in the nature journaling community in nature stewardship. She really has brought that idea of stewardship to the forefront and helped us connect that with conservation. So I also want to send a shout out to you, Avea, for your continued work, not just being a land steward, but helping people also share their conservation stories and find ways to get involved. This is something that for everybody watching this, being connected with the conservation work is something that is joyful, that gives us hope, that gives us meaningful hope, and helps us redefine for ourselves who we are and our place in this world, to something that I think we can be really proud to adopt. As before we wrap up today, Avea, do you have any last thoughts or comments?
I was a bit late, but I'm just so grateful to everybody who came today and attended, and to the three of you, Marcia, Jess, and Jack, for doing this. And each time we remember and make the time to honor a species like the cheetah, or to learn a bit more about them, to draw them, to love them, each of those influences us and makes us make different choices that gives them that hope. So it's one of those things that you have to do again and again in order to make that difference. And so I'm really thankful that you all give us that opportunity to do that today. And if anybody would like to know about other stewardship stories in the nature journaling community, I'm almost done getting the starters prepped with this. I'll be launching a series fairly soon where I have interviewed nature journalers about their stewardship work, so that they could share all of the different flavors of stewardship that are possible. And I'll be interviewing more of them as well. I'm just doing some editing, but that will be launching at some point soon onto my YouTube. So I hope that people will be inspired by that as well, in addition to all of the wonderful stuff that we learned about today.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations, Avea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The last thing that I would like to say, if I may, is that if anyone is looking for a good Christmas present, that sponsorships make a really good Christmas present for people.
You can adopt a cheetah?
You can adopt a cheetah in Namibia or Somaliland, and you can adopt a livestock guarding dog.
Yep.
There's a sponsorship, but for the Namibian cheetahs, you get to pick a specific cheetah, and they have all their little bios online. And for the Somaliland cheetahs, because we have so many and there's not enough people to give updates on individual ones, you adopt the program. So they will send you a program update. We are going to be doing individual ones in Somaliland soon, but not quite there. But dogs, you can pick the dog program, the Somaliland cheetah program, or individual Namibia cats, and they make really good gifts.
It is the good giving season. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon. Until we all meet again. Be kind. Get yourself out there in nature. The work that you do, bonding and connecting with nature, it spills over into our motivation to be stewards of this planet. We have the incredible chance to be alive. Let's make the most of it. And until we meet again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you do. Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas and happy Cheetah Day. Yeah.
Happy International Cheetah Day.
International Cheetah Day.
Hey.